Hope you're well. Before we get rolling with the video, I'd like to share with you the most traditional, common definitions of psychopath, as I think it pays relevance. Now, psychopath is a personality disorder, traditionally defined as antisocial behavior, impaired empathy, impaired remorse, and egotistical traits. Now, what you're about to see is a video of a protest in New York City outside the French embassy, protesting the French peace talks going on. The speaker you're about to hear is Jeffrey Wiesenfeld of the Jewish Rapid Response Coalition. I don't know why it's called the Jewish Rapid Response Coalition. It really should be called the far-right Zionist lunatic Rapid Response Coalition. If I was a Jewish person, I'd be offended by this. But it is what it is. So let's get rolling, shall we?
We were granted the right to exist by the God of our fathers at the glimmer of the dawn of human civilization nearly 4,000 years ago.
Wow, must be nice to have a right to exist.
For that right, which has been sanctified in Jewish blood from generation to generation.
Right when you thought they were a religion. No, of course not. Most of us know that they think of themselves as a tribe, even though they've been spread across the known planet for thousands of years. Never mind the fact that every single one of them has 2 parents, 4 grandparents, 8 great-grandparents, 16 great-great-grandparents. Now date that back thousands of years. You think all of them were Jewish?
We have paid a price unexampled in the annals of nations.
It's almost as if you're saying their small tribe mentality, or I should say their strong tribe mentality, makes them incompatible with other societies. I just thought.
What kind of expression is this? I asked the representatives of the French government.
Wow, this reminds me of a famous story since we're on the topic of France. The French government offered equal rights and French citizenship to all the Jews living in France at the time. And this came under strong opposition from, can you guess it? From Jews themselves. Now, I'm not saying every Jew at the time was against this, but the strongest opposition were from Jews. I imagine they sounded a little bit like how he sounds today.
Punishing Israel? Is Israel a vassal state of yours? Is Israel a banana republic?
Last I checked, it was the Palestinians being severely punished and being treated like a vassal state. But what do I know?
Are we youths of 14 who, if they don't behave properly, are slapped across the fingers?
Oh yes, of course, because Israel gets punished all the time. How many other nations do you know can get away with the amount of resolutions Israel has against them?
Let me tell you who this government is composed of. It is composed of people whose lives were spent in resistance, in fighting and in suffering. You will not frighten us with punishments. He who threatens us will find us deaf to his threats.
I do what I want. I don't go to school and I kill people. Whatever, I do what I want.
The Jewish people have been around. The civilization of Yisrael has been around longer than anyone else. The only people who come close, maybe within 1,000 years, are the Chinese.
Okay, a couple things wrong with that. The first Israelite civilization established was in 1050 BC. And it didn't even last long. And now he wants to compare himself to the Chinese, who were an isolated group, unlike the Israelites, who have been spread all across the place. This is almost too moronic to comprehend.
I don't even want to tell you where the French were when Jewish civilization was already well established.
I wish you would.
Who are you? Who are you, the government of France, to make plans outlines agreements on our behalf. Who the hell are you?
Actually, France helped Israel a lot when they were starting out. They're their strongest friends and allies, believe it or not. To mention a few things, besides French voting in favor of their legitimacy, France also supported Israel's war of independence. France also gave Israel their first nuclear reactor. Officially and unofficially, they spearheaded Israel's nuclear weapons program, but we're not supposed to talk about that. That's supposed to be a secret. Also, in 1956, France became Israel's main arms supplier. And quite more recent, in 2015, the French foreign minister joined Israeli officials in voicing strong opposition to Russia giving Iran missile defense system. Because God forbid Iran be able to defend themselves.
UN Ambassador Francois Delarte, who are you? United States Ambassador, French United States Ambassador Gerard Araud, who are you? New York Consul General of France in New York, Claire Legendre, who are you?
Who are they to recognize Palestinians as people? How dare they? Who do they think they are?
You were going to tell us? No, you're going to go back. Go back to that president of yours, Hollande, and you're going to tell him, we the Jewish people in the state of Israel will not accept your edicts. You have no right to tell us what to do.
All right, the same French president, Hollande, that suggested to Palestinians that they give up their right of return in 2013, and the same French president who banned pro-Palestinian marches in France in 2014 during the Gaza bombings. You might recall that. That's when 3 Israeli kids got kidnapped, and there's absolutely no evidence who did it. But, what the hell? Gave Israel an excuse to bomb the shit out of Gaza.
Who are you? Here's who you are, you whorish government of France. I'll tell you who you are.
Wow, this you haven't heard this strong a language from Israelis towards France since after the 6-Day War, when the president at the time of France, de Gaulle, had a famous news conference where he stated, quote, "Le peuple juif sûr de lui-même est dominateur." Now, a quick translation of that is the Jewish population, of course referring to Israel, when sure of themselves, they're dominators, supremacists. I think a Canadian historian named Henry Weinberg described it best, his speech, quote, "De Gaulle implicitly characterized the Israelis as arrogant, expansionist warhawks who seek every opportunity to achieve their imperialistic aims as militarists spoiling for a fight." End quote. Israel started the 6-Day War. That's undeniable, by the way. And that's why the French president was so upset with them. And of course, whenever talking about the 6-Day War, you should always mention the USS Liberty. But that's for another video.
You allowed a hostile population into your midst, more than any other nation in Europe. A hostile population which you cannot assimilate.
Well, France does have the largest Jewish community in Europe. They have over 480,000 Jews, and Paris is said to have more kosher restaurants than even New York.
Many of whose members are sympathizers with jihadists, or jihadists themselves. But, being French, you want their votes, because you have more of them than the Jews.
Oh, he must have met Muslims living in France. I see, because he said jihadists, see. Oh, okay. Well, let's take a look here. France has 2.1 million Muslims. That's out of a population just under 67 million. So yeah, I'm sure France bases their foreign policy on that, what, less than 5% population?
You want to give us an edict? No edicts for the Jewish people in the state of Israel. You have no legitimacy. Who are you? You are the nation of Alfred Dreyfus. Who are you?
Oh, I can't believe this idiot went there. He is really stretching. Alright, so a little background on Alfred Dreyfus. He was an artillery officer for the French army who on January 5th, 1895 was arrested and convicted for sharing artillery secrets with the Germans. There was strong support for Dreyfus, calling the government anti-Semitism. So they performed another trial, and again, in 1899 he was convicted, found guilty. But again, the president fell under the pressure of being called anti-Semitism. So Émile Loubet, in the same year of 1899, gave him a pardon that he accepted. Now, if this guy wants to call that an injustice, I got a few stats here I'd like to share with you. 40% of the male Palestinian has been imprisoned by Israel at one point. Over 100,000 Palestinians have been held in administrative detention. That's when you're held in prison with no trial at all. Maybe you don't care about Palestinians. Maybe you don't think of them as people or something. How about we look at the case of Mordecai Vanunu? He was an Israeli. What they do to him? Well, he was an Israeli nuclear technician who revealed details with pictures of Israel's illegal rogue nuclear weapons program to the British press in 1986. What did they do to this man? He spent 18 years in Israeli prison, including more than 11 years in solitary confinement. But hey, off of Dreyfus and the
When Prince Faisal in 1920 had an agreement with Chaim Weizmann that the Arabs would accept their land and the Jews would be able to establish theirs, we could have had the Jewish state 2 years after the Balfour Declaration. Who did it? Who screwed it up? The French, because they wanted Syria and Lebanon.
Okay, he's talking about the Faisal-Weizmann agreement. This happened in 1919. Basically, a little background. Weizmann was a representative of the Zionist Commission, and Faisal was the king of Syria basically at the time. He didn't last long at all. And basically, they wrote an agreement where Faisal would cooperate with the Zionist movement to build a homeland in Palestine for them. Well, there's one problem with this, was that the French and the English already had a mandate for all the areas of the former Ottoman Empire. You might wonder why Faisal would have done this to the Palestinians. Well, this is a quote from Weizmann after a meeting with Faisal, claiming that Faisal said this, quote, contemptuous of the Palestinian Arabs who he doesn't even regard as Arabs. So that gives you a little bit of insight there. But also, what Weizmann is quoted as saying himself, as he was calling the Palestinians treacherous, arrogant, uneducated, and greedy. Now, I'm not going to get into details here, but I can think of another group that continuously gets called treacherous, arrogant, uneducated to the point they don't even know what hypocrisy is, and greedy. It should also be noted that Faisal, basically right after signing it, was already starting to express lots of doubts about cooperation with the Zionist movement. It became irrelevant because Faisal was expelled from Syria the following year.
Who are you to tell us? Who are you? Who are you, Mr. Ambassador? Who are you? Your ancestors, only 2 generations ago, willingly deported the Jewish people to Auschwitz through Drancy with your own trains. With your own trains at your own free will.
Okay, of course you'd expect this, playing the Holocaust card. No, let's not belittle it. Around 1.1 million people were killed at Auschwitz. But how about we don't belittle the 60 plus million people that were murdered during World War II? You think this guy's capable of that?
Who are you? Who are you to tell the Jewish people about the Jewish state and their future? Who are you? What right do you have?
Quick question for you. What right do the Zionists have to speak on behalf of all Jews?
You, the French, who prematurely released members of the Abu Nidal group who murdered people in Goldenberg's restaurant. Who are you? Who released other terrorists who had bombed the liberal French synagogue in Paris?
Well, shit. Israelis shoot at unarmed Palestinians all the time. They even burn down churches, mosques, Palestinian infrastructure. Israelis even burnt a Palestinian baby alive, along with the family. You know what the sentence was? 10 months. 10 months for burning a baby alive. Is that not considered early release?
Who the hell are you to tell the Jewish people whose judgment you have the right to make? You have no right whatsoever. You have no legitimacy in our future.
Of course, this is a thanks that France gets for helping Israel out in their early stages.
And we tell you, as Americans and on behalf of the government of Israel, thank God January 20th is coming, because all you will do will be of zero value, zero legitimacy.
Bring in the fading! Bring in the fading!
You want to give lectures? You want to give edicts? You start with Nicaragua. You start with Venezuela. You start with Iran. Leave us the hell alone. Who are you?
And what would they lecture Nicaragua or Venezuela about? Last I checked, they're not the ones who are consistently expanding their borders or bombing their neighboring nations, you know, for a couple examples. Oh shit, that's the same with Iran. Iran hasn't started a war or invaded anybody in almost 200 years.
We are the Jewish people, and we have an ancestral homeland, the State of Israel.
Pretty sure Palestinians have an ancestral homeland as well. They've been there since biblical times.
And the State of Israel will take no direction from the government of France, a government which has no loyalty, betrays its friends, and wants the votes of jihadists.
Again, France helped out Israel a lot. And look at the loyalty they're getting. Look at the friendship they're getting. And, gee, did he just call every Muslim in France a jihadist?
We are the Jewish people. We have been here longer than anyone else. Certainly longer than you while you were strolling in caves.
The man with the caveman logic, talking about others strolling in caves. I don't know about you, but I'm in contact often with Zionist supporters. They are anything but enlightened.
Do not give any edicts to us. They will fall on deaf ears.
Yeah, this guy isn't a racist supremacist at all. Now let's be real here. These lunatics, psychopaths, are protesting for the right to steal and to be above the law.
It's only recently you said of Israel, it's a crazy country, it's like a junkie. Every few years they go to war, they need their fix, they're lunatics. American Jews don't want to defend that.
Yeah, Israel is carrying on in a lunatic fashion. I would like to ask you...
And Hezbollah, who you went to meet?
I would like to ask you, name me another country in the world. 2003, Israel was the cheerleaders for the war in Iraq. 2006, it went into war in Lebanon. 2008, 2009, it attacked Gaza. Now it talks about attacking Iran. If you read the Israeli papers every day, they talk about, should we attack Gaza? Should we attack Lebanon? Should we attack Syria? Name me another country in the world that falls into that category.
Well,
that's a lunatic state.
Nicaragua, I can't say that.